We're doing a session about license server. It's actually not moving when I do this.
Okay, so
Yeah, okay.
you just
I'll just tap you.
yeah, okay. That's fine.
I think you should know by now the reason why we did license server, and what we see from customers who are already starting to implement it or have implemented it is exactly what is written here and why it was developed. So if you don't use license server, you always end up having to activate something on a machine. And in some environments, that's just not very practical. You can't because, for example, you want to do scaling up and down automatically, so you want to launch machines on the fly and then have them process, and when they're no longer needed, you want to kill them again, and so on. And there are a number of environments where you can do this quite easily. Amazon is a very good example. But the activation process, if it's manual, doesn't fit well with that. So at the moment, where we are is that license server has been released. It's an actual product. You can look at the documentation on the website. You can see it on the website itself. pdfToolbox 10 and 11 work with it out of the box. You saw this morning that you can also use pdfToolbox desktop with license server. So all of that has been implemented. The other products support it, but the versions that support it are not officially out yet. That means if you have a customer who wants to use PDFA Pilot or PDF chip with license server, that is available, but you have to ask the question. So what we thought we would do, we have two parts to this presentation. The first part is these two nice gentlemen who are going to do some practical stuff. Because what we thought we were going to do was show you what the steps are that are involved in working with license server. We have done a couple of theoretical presentations. What you find out in practice is the first time you try to use it, there are a number of hoops you have to jump through, and you have to do them in a particular order. So the first part of this presentation is just going to be a practical look at what do you have to do to get going with a license server and then to use pdfToolbox with that license server. The second part of the presentation will be a presentation from someone from Pixar Printing who took a very long time to get here and arrived just in time, with thanks for that. And because they have gone through this process and we want to let them share how that was and what they've done and so on. But first, the practical stuff. So the first step is, and this is perhaps obvious, but apparently not always, is you have to decide what you want. The way license server works is entirely different than how the other licensing mechanisms work. And the right answer might very well be that you don't want or don't need to use license server. Yeah? There is a different price point. It is actually not inexpensive. It works differently from a commercial point of view. It works differently from a technical point of view. So you have to see whether license server matches the project that you have. If you have questions about pricing, and there's two types of questions that we receive. One could be, how much does it cost? How much does it cost in my environment? The second could be, we're already using pdfToolbox. We want to switch to license server. How does that work? Then just contact us and ask the question, and we will help you figure that part out. Okay, that's the commercial story. The next thing you have to ask yourself is, if you're going to do license server, it's probably because you have some system that is relatively critical, because otherwise you're probably not going to go through all this effort. That probably also means that being fail-safe is an important parameter as well. And license server, without changing anything to how much it costs, license server supports environments where you have only one, and that means if the machine using license server dies, well, too bad. No processing for a while until you've reinstalled it. But you can use it in environments where you do automatic failover between multiple license servers. And for technical reasons that I don't quite understand, but these people do, You always have to have an odd number of license servers. I kind of understand still, but anyway. It's like having a rocket where you have three engines that, or three things that decide, and then the majority wins. But you can install license server, just one license, or you can install three. Those are the two most common cases, and what we see. In theory, it's also possible to do 5 or 7 or 31 or... What license server itself needs is, and this is also a very common question, license server needs, by itself, needs a fixed IP, and that's the wrong term to use for it. It needs to be on a machine that you can reach, of which you know where it is. And that might be a fixed IP, but it might be something, for example, Amazon has a system with flexible IP addresses that follow the machine. They give you a number, and then the number reroutes to the machine that is currently being used automatically. But you need to know where the machine is, or where the machines are, if you have multiple, where license server is running. You also have to decide what the communication ports are that you're going to use, and an important factor is also cache folder, and that, and we'll come back on that. Yes. So, time for some practical stuff, right? So if you want to use license server, the first thing you need to do is
activate
the license server.
We won't show this step because everybody knows activation of pdfToolbox.
Yeah, so activation of the license server is exactly the same as activation of any of the other products. Which basically means you need to get a red license file from us, and then you have to activate the product, send an email, you'll get a green license or activation file back, and you have to use that, and then you have an activation, a license server that runs somewhere on a machine. Yeah? Yeah. And for multiple license servers, you have to do it multiple times, right? With the same license information.
Yes, if you probably should mention that that you have to decide before you actually get the license whether you want to have a single license server or failover mode, because it's tied to the license file you receive, and if you receive a failover license, you can't use it with just one instance of the license server, so it just won't work. It would not deliver any license if you run a license server with a failover license without a second license server.
Yeah, so even though there is no commercial difference, and so no price difference between one license server or 3 or 31, from a licensing point of view, we do have to know, because it will be in the license that you get. Yes?
Yeah, so for example, that's the activation PDF for the license server itself. So it's the same as for pdfToolbox, and you can use this PDF to activate the license server. So on my machine, I have a license server in this activate state. I can ask for a status by just typing the status command. I will get an information about the activation of the license server. So I have an activation code, I have a serial number, I have a name, company, email address for failover no in this example. That's equal to failover count 1 means no failover, so that's the logic behind that. So as you also can see, we have a section about cartridges, and we don't have any cartridges here. Okay, but nevertheless, I could already start the server because I have a license, and I started with the server command, and now the server is running.
Yeah, and it already shows the ports that it is listening on as well.
Yes, so we have, normally we have 2 ports. We have 1 port for the license server client communication, or license server in failover mode communication. That's normally the port 1400. And then we have another port that's used for a REST interface of the license server, or for monitoring or getting status information. So I could, for example, just switch to a web browser and look at localhost at port 1401. I will get some information about the running license server already, so there's not much here. So we have the serial number, of course, and the status, and when the license server was started, but we don't have any cartridges yet. Okay. There's also, it's here. There's also a REST API available, so that's the status data JSON URL. We get the same information as in the website I just showed before in JSON format. So we can also retrieve all this information using curl or some other tool that can access this URL. Okay. So back to presentation, or shall I show? Okay, so I already.
Yeah, you already done that. So that's great. And then I think the next one was something about status again.
Okay.
Oh, status log interface. Yes. Okay.
Interface, so we have done that.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry for that.
And no, it's not a problem. This is exactly what needs to happen. And so then the next thing is that you need cartridges for this license server. And for each cartridge, you will receive a license file just as you would receive for a product that you purchase. And then you need to install the cartridge on a particular license server and activate it on that license server. And if you have a failover scenario, luckily, you only have to do it on one, and then they will replicate the information about the cartridges amongst themselves.
So when should?
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we have prepared something for cartridges. So if you buy a cartridge for a license server, it's normally tied to a license server serial number. So if you buy a cartridge, you have to specify your license server serial number and the type of cartridge, whether you want a process cartridge or a credit-based cartridge. And then you get this license PDF. In order to activate, you would stop the server. You could also do it on a running server, but I won't show that here. I have the cartridge command, and I need a license for that. And that's essentially the same as for activating a product. So you just type license server and provide the cartridge command and provide the license you received from 4Ps. And then you get information that can be used to activate this cartridge on this license server. So you have to send this information to activate@callassoftware.com, and you will receive another PDF. I've already done this. So we have activation cartridges here. This is a file you receive from the activation server containing the actual activation information for this license server. And again, you use the install command together with the activation cartridge you received. You just drop it into the terminal, and then it will activate this license for you. And now you should see see an installed cartridge. So we have a cartridge for Callas pdfToolbox Desktop 11 run count 1 now installed. I can start the server. That's nice. So I picked the correct cartridge to show you activation usage of license server in pdfToolbox.
It's already.
It's already.
Yeah.
Okay, you saw it already. So
Okay. So normally we are in this state. If we run pdfToolbox without a license, you see the blue bar at the top of the window indicating that the product is not activated. In pdfToolbox 11, we added this button on the right-hand side here in order to use the license server, and it's already here. So if you don't specify a port, it takes the default port. If you use another port, you would have to specify the port here as well. And now the pdfToolbox is activated. And actually, we could just refresh the REST interface for our local server now, and we see some more information here. So we have the cartridges section, where we see, okay, we have a cartridge for product ID 1100, so that's pdfToolbox desktop internally for version 11. And that's one point to mention as well. So if you have a cartridge for pdfToolbox 11, it can be used with pdfToolbox 10 as well, or pdfToolbox 9. So it's the highest version that can be used with this cartridge. Yes? So if you want to upgrade your installation to a new major version of pdfToolbox, you can just install the upgrade cartridges on the license server and can still use the old software until migration is done at your installation. Okay, so we have some more information. Run count 1, no credits. Postpay is something we don't talk about normally. Statistics, okay, one run count is used since startup of the license server, so that's just my pdfToolbox session. Remaining credits, in this scenario we don't have credits, but we also have information on which license server this cartridge is actually installed. So in this non-failover scenario, we only have one license server, but if you have more than one license server, the cartridge is actually only installed in one server and is distributed to the failover network. So you can get this information here as well. Then we have section containing all the sessions. This is my my MacBook Pro session running pdfToolbox. Okay, and we have a list of servers here. You can also look at this in the nicer overview here. So now we have the list of servers, we have the cartridge with some statistics, and we have the list of actual current active sessions here.
And for pdfToolbox desktop, a session is active until you quit the desktop, correct?
Yeah, it refreshes sometimes. It refreshes the session, so there's some timeout in order to allow reuse of the license by another. If you don't have enough run counts and you are not active in pdfToolbox, it can also give away the session.
Show its run count until we...
So if we just stop usage of license server here, you see the session is gone on the license server, and if I restart the usage of license server, we have a new session, and now we have run count 2 because it was used 2 times. So together with desktop, the run count statistics is not so useful, I admit. Okay, so we also have a license server running in the cloud. If I find it, no. Okay, it's here. So if we, when do we have to stop, David?
Soon. Soon.
Soon. Okay. Okay. I have not so much time anymore, but I have we have one license server running in the Amazon cloud, and as you can see, we have a failover set up here. We have 3 servers in this case. There's one server that has a star in the status, and that's the main coordinator server. that can change, so you cannot do, and it's just more information for us, not for you. And we have a lot of cartridges installed here, so you can see PDF chip as well. And this is the counter Klim already mentioned in his example, where he just retrieved some information from the REST interface of the license server. So you see, it runs pretty stable. I think the server is running since July this year, and it has delivered 4 million licenses so far. So that's our test setup in the cloud.
In total 6 million.
Yeah. Okay.
What does exactly failures drop?
Interesting question. Failures is if no license could be delivered because too much license requests came in. Okay. So we have a timeout for license. So if you have only have 8 runtime licenses and no credits, for example, or the credits are exhausted and you request more licenses than you have run counts for, then you get a failure. Drop sessions are sessions that encountered a timeout during processing. So you got the license, but the connection was bad in some way, so the connection was dropped. Then the license was dropped as well, and you get a run count for free because the process runs until the end, if it's command line, yes. So, I think time is over.